Have you ever been super down on yourself and thought, man, I am really doing everything I can right now, and it just feels like my business is going nowhere? In today's video, I want to talk about how to keep your business realistic and maintainable. I know a lot of us watch reseller YouTube content, or maybe you're watching Instagram reels and you're seeing big numbers that people are doing. I know it can be very discouraging. I know a lot of us, especially when we are newer resellers, consume a lot of reseller content. You see what somebody else is doing, you see what somebody else is making, and it seems like their reselling business is super easy, things are going well, and they're making a ton of money. The truth of it is, most resellers are really struggling right now to keep their businesses afloat. What you're seeing are the good days in reselling and not the true messiness that comes with reselling. In today's video, I want to talk about how to keep your goals realistic and how to maintain your business, because it shouldn't feel like you are climbing an uphill battle every single day. All of these 8 tips that I'm about to share with you are ones that I currently practice in my own business. They help to keep me very grounded and have realistic expectations. The first tip I want to share with you is to not pivot, at least not all the time. If you are constantly changing your processes all the time because you're watching reseller content and someone comes up with a good idea and you're immediately trying it because you think it will help your business, you might be causing yourself more problems in the long run. Because if you're constantly pivoting, you are never going to be able to test out things that might actually work in your business if you are only testing them out for 1-2 days or even a week. Whenever we decide to try something out in our business, we try to give them at least a month to see it through. A month's time is generally a good amount of time to be able to see, is this process going to work? It allows you to get into the groove of things and it allows you to see results. If you only try things for a week, you're not going to be able to get good at them, know how quickly you can do them, and on the flip side, be able to see some hurdles that you might have to overcome by implementing this new process. So if you're going to try something out, try to do it for at least a month. If you can do it longer, the better. Now, obviously, if something is just simply not working, then yeah, I would scrap it. But most of the time, we haven't even gotten good enough yet at whatever new process we're doing in order to determine if it is right for our business. So if you can, don't pivot. Practice and consistency is the only way to really get good at something. And if you're constantly changing up what you're doing, you're never going to get good at it. Tip number 2 I have for you, and I know it's easier said than done, but it is to schedule at least 2 days off for yourself. So whether you're part-time or you're a full-time reseller, make sure to schedule 2 days off. 2 days where you are not going to do any kind of reselling. We choose Saturday and Sunday because they are not considered business days, and therefore we don't have to ship out on those days. But it could be whatever works for your business. Like I said, I know it's easier said than done, so even if you have to kind of force yourself to do it, by doing that, you'll be forced to work around those 2 days. If you constantly allow yourself to just work whenever, you're not going to get stuff done. Not to mention, setting time off for yourself is so important because it helps keep you balanced, and it's really great for your mental health. You gotta do things besides working. It's super counterintuitive, but I think you would be really surprised if you are not taking time off, if you actually decided to take a set couple days off every week, how much more you would actually get done. And that's because you are going to be more motivated, more focused, and happier if you've got that work-life balance. When you know it's time to work, you will work. When it's time to play, you will play. Tip number 3 is don't forget to include taxes, fees, and other expenses when you are considering your numbers. Sometimes we make goals for ourselves that we actually achieve, but we didn't even consider the fact that we've got to pay 30% in taxes. And it can be a real big bummer whenever you set a goal and you achieve it, but then you realize there were deductions that you didn't expect. I always recommend trying to overestimate things. If your goal is to gross $2,000 a month, I would try to aim the bar a little bit higher at $3,000 just to account for all of those additional things. Leave yourself a lot of buffer room. A lot easier to take things month by month in small chunks than it is to wait until the very end of the year and realize that you owe all those taxes on all of the earnings that you had and you didn't set that money aside. So really consider all of those things before the sales even happen. Tip number 4 is to know your averages. Knowing your averages is vital to your business. What are your average cost of goods? What's your average sale price? On average, how many items do you typically pick up from a thrift store? Averages are super important because they can help you make realistic goals. Even though this week you might have found a $50 item, if most of them were $25, then that's about your average. You want to base your goals off of what you regularly do, not what happened once or twice. You can determine your averages either weekly, monthly, quarterly. I recommend doing them monthly and basing your goals off of those averages and not whatever numbers you've made up in your head. Averages are so important versus other numbers because they account for the good days and the bad days. They are a middle ground and are more realistic on what to expect when it comes to your business. Speaking of averages, tip number 5 is to time yourself and add buffer room. You really don't know how much time you're actually spending in your business until you time yourself. Figure out how long it actually takes you to list an item, how long it takes you to source items, and then make a plan of attack after that. I always say prepare for the worst, so add some buffer room in there. If you know today is a photo day and you need to get photos done, if it takes you, let's say 5 minutes per item to take photos, I would add a little bit of buffer room just in case things go wrong. Find a stain on an item, you have to throw it in the laundry bin, you've got to lint roll something. Figure out that average time and then add a little bit to it. So if it's 5 minutes, I would add 1 or 2 minutes extra to that, just again, to have a more realistic and comfortable understanding of what you can actually get done in a day. Then you won't be surprised when it's the end of the week and you've only accomplished half of your tasks. Tip number 6 is to not increase how many items that you are listing per day until you are scheduled ahead. So if you are currently listing 10 a day and you realize after the timing, your averages, and you're digging into the numbers, you are actually capable of listing more than 10 a day based on your time, wait to actually increase those numbers until you are scheduled ahead. What I mean by that is if you are listing 10 a day and you're setting them active on the day that you're listing them, instead, whatever you can do in excess. So let's say you decide that you're capable of moving from 10 listings a day to 15 listings a day. Instead of setting all 15 active, set the 10 active still and then take those extra 5 and schedule them for days in the future. And do this for a while until you're about 1 or 2 weeks scheduled ahead, whatever you're comfortable with. I personally prefer a 2-week buffer, and it really won't take you long to do this either. I mean, if you think about it, if you're setting 10 active per day, and let's say you're doing that 7 days a week, although you really should be taking those 2 days off, that is 70 items per week. Let's say you list 70 items per week and you're doing 5 additional per day. 70 divided by 5 is 14. So it's only going to take you 2 weeks of doing an extra 5 per day to get a week ahead. Being scheduled ahead has been, I can't even put into words. It's just been so impactful on my business, on my mental health, on my stress levels, like all of it. Because I know that if something happens, I don't have to stress out about it. I can catch up later in the week and get back on track. If I'm sick, I'm not going to be trying to work while I'm sick because I'm scheduled ahead. So it's no sweat if I need to take a day off. But if you find yourself being able to do extra listings, I know it's a really quick grab and you're really incentivized to go ahead and flush out those listings because you think you'll make more money quicker. But I would say it is way more impactful to your business in the long run to get scheduled ahead. So don't increase your active listings per day. Schedule them ahead of time until you have some buffer room, and then consider increasing how many you're setting active each day. Tip number 7 is to actually know your numbers. Like, actually know them. And I'm not just talking financials. I know I've talked about that in other videos as well, but to actually know what you are doing each day. And I'm specifically talking about listing. So a lot of times when I'm goal planning with somebody I'm helping to coach, they'll say something like, I want to sell 10 items a day. That is what would get me to reach my financial goals. And then I ask the question, okay, are you even listing 10 items a day? And surprisingly, when I ask that question, almost every single time they're like, well, no, I'm not actually listing 10 items per day. If you're not listing 10 items per day, then you cannot expect to sell 10 items per day. So actually know what you're doing every single day, every single week, especially in terms of your listing. Because if you've got goals, you've got to have supportive tasks that will help you to achieve those goals. So are your goals even possible for you to achieve with what you are currently doing? I think a lot of us think we're listing a lot, and it turns out that we're actually not. Just get a little piece of paper, get a notebook, and just each day, write Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Write down the number that you actually listed for the day. I think seeing those numbers on paper are super impactful in terms of knowing whether you're really being realistic about your goals. And tip number 8, and the final one for today's video, is just to give yourself and to give others grace. I know, again, easier said than done. But I think sometimes if we know before things happen that we are going to make mistakes, if we know that buyers are going to tick us off, if we know that buyers can be dishonest, if we know we're going to get scammed, if we know we are going to mess up, and we know that sometimes we are going to fail, knowing those things in advance is going to help it hurt a lot less when it does happen. And you're going to be able to press forward much faster if you give yourself grace. Try to look at them as hurdles to overcome and not roadblocks. They are lessons to be learned and not just mistakes. All right, you guys, that is it for today's video. I hope that I was able to put things into perspective for you on how to keep your goals realistic and your business manageable. If you guys have any tips that you use in your business that I didn't mention in today's video that you think would be helpful to other resellers, then make sure to drop them in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm wishing you the absolute best in your reselling business, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.